Namaste everyone. Welcome back. We'll start the class. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraah Stirairangaiः Stushtuvangsastanoभिः व्यशेमदेवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I'll chant the verses. Om Brahma Devanam Prathamas Sambhabhuva Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta Sabrahma Vidyam Sarva Vidya Pratishtham Atharvaya Jeshtaputraya Praha Atharvaneyam Pravadeta Brahma Atharvatam Purovachangire Brahma Vidyam Sabharadvajaya Satyavahaya Praha Bharadvajo Angirase Paravaram Shaunako Havai Mahashalaha Angirasam Vidivadupasannah Prapacha Kasminnu Bhagavo Vijñāte Sarvamidam Vijñātam Bhavatiti Tasmai Sahovacha Dve Vidye Veditavye Itihasmayad Brahma Vedo Vadanti Parachaiva Paracha Tatra Pararigvedo Yajurveda Samavedo Atharvavedaha Shiksha Kalpo Vyakaranan Niruktan Chando Jyotishamiti Atha Parayaya Tadakshar Adhigamyate Yattadadreshyamagrahyamagotramavarnam Achakshushrotram tadapaanipadam Nityam vibham sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam Yadbhutayonim paripashyanti dhiraha Yathornanabhisrajate grunnate cha Yatha prithivyamo sambhavanti Yatha satah purushat keshalomani Tatha ksharat sambhavati havishvam Tapasa chiyate brahma Tato namabhijayate Annat prano manas satyam Lokah karmasu chamritam yah sarvajñah sarvaved yasya jnanamayam tapaha tasmadetat brahma nama rupamannam cha jayate. So Mundaka Upanishad, first Mundaka, first Khanda, which is the first chapter and first section, is a kind of a summary, especially after the parampara is established. Shaunaka's question, Paravidya, what is that one thing knowing which I know everything? Following which was given the answer of two knowledges to be gained, Paravidya, Aparavidya. And then first, what was Aparavidya? And then what is Paravidya? And in Paravidya, Brahman was knowledge of Brahman in verse 6, mantra 6, was said to be Paravidya, and following which is one of the important prakriyas for Brahma Vidya, which is the Srishti Prakriya, which establishes a Karya Karana Sambandha only to falsify the Karyam as real. So, to explain that, Brahman is said to be the Karanam, and being the Karanam, the jump that one can make is the world is an effect. World is Karyam. Brahman is the cause of creation, and creation is the effect. And since we all know that Brahman being the only truth, and therefore truth of oneself, and oneself being a part of creation, so it almost becomes that oneself is an effect from Brahman. Whereas Vedanta will say, you are Brahman. So if you are Brahman, then how are you the Karyam, how are you the Karanam for this world? That becomes the question. To take care of such a doubt, Shastra goes into a lot of detailed step-by-step process of how from Brahman, one step at a time, from Karanam Prapancha, say Karanam, pure Karanam, Brahman, when he becomes the creator based on the previous karma phalas which he has knowledge of in the previous creation, at the time when these phalas have to be manifested, in accordance to that, a creation is set forth. Brahman himself, why himself, itself, with self, starts in its own self becoming the material for the Jagat. He holds the knowledge of what sort of a Srishti is to be created. And the Srishti, as I'm repeating again, this Srishti, how does he have the knowledge? Because of the knowledge of the past Srishti. And in the past Srishti, there were karmas done. Karma phalas have to be undergone. and also a fresh opportunity for the jivas to change, to grow, keeping that knowledge in oneself. Srishti Brahman, in Brahman, the possibilities of fresh Srishti starts to manifest. So, Brahman being pure begins a Karana Prapancha. Now, all that was there from the past Srishti is now the potential material, potential intelligence. Material is Brahman himself, and that starts to surface change as if that aspect in Brahman which undergoes the change is called, here he just says, tapasa chiyate. That tapas meant Brahman. He just begins the process of creation. And for that creation, the entire causal creation, Karana Prapancha, is the potential from which comes first the Sukshma Prapancha, Samashti Sukshma Prapancha, which means all the beings that are going to be manifest in the entire age of that creation. Creation will have its own age. Billions of years, doesn't we know that through the Vedic cycle, how many kalpas, in each kalpa, how many yugas and etc. It'll have an age, and all the beings which are going to manifest. Creation is kept that in mind, and all these beings, Sukshma Sharira is held as one intelligent process, which is Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha here is taken as the Annam in verse 8, mantra 8. Annam is representing entire Sukshma Shariram. In other words, what begins the process of change, even though the verse here hasn't said, the Sampradaya introduces the word Maya. That aspect of Brahman, which is its Shakti to create, that potential with which it manifests is Maya. So Brahman plus Maya becomes Ishvara. This Ishvara sometimes is taken as an independent word. Sometimes here in this context, Ishvara is not taken at all. It's taken straight Hiranyagarbha. Annam. From Annam, he said, Annam was the Avyaktam. I'm sorry, I'll repeat this. Brahman plus Maya is Ishvara, and that entire causal state was the Avyaktam. From Avyaktam comes Pranaha, and here Pranaha is the Sukshma Shariram, Samashti Sukshma Shariram, so Hiranyagarbha. And from Pranaha, another more manifestation is the Manaha, which is the Antakaranam. Pran and Antakaranam both are said to be Sukshma Shariram. And from there, then starts, so causal world, Karana Prapancha, Avyaktam, Sukshma Prapancha is Hiranyagarbha, Pranaha, Manaha, and then comes the Sthula Prapancha, and the Sthula gross world made up of, once the Samashti Manaha has manifested, it starts to now form Satyam, which means the broad Panchamahabhut, grossified Bhut, Panchamahabhut, which are going to be constituting the Virat. And in the Virat, now there are these lokas, Sapta lokas up and Sapta lokas down, Bhuloka being in the center. So all 14 lokas are now formed with these gross elements. And once the lokas are formed, then automatically the jivas are manifested, and the jivas manifesting is the very lokas. When it is made, it has been made keeping karma phala in mind and karma in mind. Therefore, karmasu cha amritam. It brings about the distinct capacity to act according to one's duties, varnas and ashramas, and also generate again karma phala, which will again get contributed to further uh, manifestation of further creations. Because amritam here, Shankara says, it can mean up to koti koti, sahasra koti, thousands of um, creation. Sometimes karma phala takes time to manifest. It's not necessary that it will all manifest in one lifetime or in one kalpa. So, depending upon the karma phalas, again, this cycle gets generated and manifested. This was verse 8, mantra 8. And in mantra 9, he is concluding. It's almost a repetition of the previous mantra. And he is giving a conclusion to this section completely by highlighting the last mantra. First section of first chapter is a summary entirely of the whatever rest is to follow, which will only be Paravidya and Aparavidya. So the second section first starts with Aparavidya and then it will move on to Paravidya in details. What has come just now is an overview. It has come as a outline. So in the 9th verse, now he says, Yas sarvagnya sarvavit yasya jnanamayam tapaha. He says, Yaha, this now, that Aksharam Brahma, who was the Bhuta Yoni, that is referred to by Yaha. Who is he? He is Sarvagnaha. Sarvagnaha means he is the all-knower in general. Shankara mentions here in the Bhashyam, it refers to in general. He has a general knowledge of everything. Because remember, I think in one other class I mentioned, it is in creation that space, time, and causation are involved. Whenever we talk of creation, creation is a limitation. So Brahman is limitless. Maya, even though it is its own power, is dependent on Brahman. So to that an extent, it has now got an amsha of limitation. And then starts another further processing of grossification. The Sukshma Prapancha has further limitation, and then you have the Sukshma elements have further limitations. So you come down and everything is only adding to the limitation. One thing adds and it kind of goes on limiting it. So when he uses the word Sarvagnya, it refers to the state that Ishvara, Maya Upadhi. It refers there because creation is still not manifested. So, since limitation involves time and space completely, there are things we don't remember in the past, we don't know in the future, but what is not in time and space is obviously known to the very Chaitanyam who is the all-knowing. So all-knowing Chaitanyam, all-knowing Brahman, in other words, is still at the level of Maya, is still Sarvagnya. At the level of Ishvara is also Sarvagnya. Sarvagnya means knows all the details that is required for creation. That is why when Ishvara manifests means now when the creation has started and Brahmaji becomes the creator, Vedas, which hold the whole knowledge, is also part of the creation, manifestation. That knowledge which he held in him, in his own self, and the first verse of Mundaka was that also. The knowledge that he held in himself is the knowledge that he hands down to his son. So with this, one leads to the other. Sarvagnya would mean a complete general knowledge, not limited at all. And then he uses the word sarvavit. Yes, sarvagnya, sarvavit. Sarvavit also actually means all knower. But here it means more knows also in details. Everything in detail he knows. So not only he has a general knowledge, sarvagnaha means sarvam janati iti sarvagnaha. Sarvavit means sarvam veti iti sarvavit. So the very first born that was mentioned in the first verse, Brahma Devanam, of all the gods, the first one, Prathamaha Sambhabhuva, he is Vishwasya Karta. He was said to be the creator. So from Ishvara himself taking on the role of becoming the creator, this creator, and then handed down, knowing, all knowing himself, handed this Vidya down also along with the creation. As the creation manifested, this Vidya also manifested. Which Vidya? Brahma Vidya. What is Brahma Vidya? That everything is nothing but Brahman and Brahman alone, and anything that we think otherwise is real is only Mithya, is only a very temporary appearance. Actually, there is no better word than that. It is just a temporary appearance. So, how do you conceive these stages? Why is the Srishti Prakarnam so essential? Because once Sarvavit, Sarvagnya has come, he is the all knower. But me, the individual who believes myself at the lowest rung of creation, of course, lower is all the other pranis who don't even have independent faculty of thinking. But as a jiva, when I see myself as limited being, I automatically cannot accept Brahman is the Karanam. I am Brahman. So when this Srishti Prakarnam is given, you realize that that Antakaranam causes Brahman, Sula Shariram causes Brahman. Everything starts relating backwards to Brahman. And a diligent student, in him, remember the word Upanishad, one of the meanings of it was Shithilikaranam. It starts to dissolve away the bondages that are felt strongly. And it also includes the individuality which is held as real. So when you do the Srishti Prakarnam, even if it is for a moment or to the extent you understand, to the extent you reflect upon it and later abide on it is what will give you Nishtha. But to the extent one understands this also, even on hearing clearly, for that moment, there is a Shithili Karanam of the individuality. It loosens. It almost loses the grip. You no longer are able to hold it for that time, for that moment, for that till you when you start seeing the whole chronology very clearly. And that is the purpose of Srishti Prakarnam. Because if it is not resolved back to who I am, if my shariram is also part of creation, then Brahman is the cause of this. But to straight away say Brahman is the cause of it is absolutely no knowledge at all, because it doesn't do anything. It has no impact to me. Brahman is not knowable. I am Brahman, but Brahman is not knowable as an object. So even if I'm told I am Brahman, firstly, nothing happens to us. Secondly, Brahman is the cause of creation. Therefore, I am also created by Brahman. Nothing happens because the grossness of our intellects, the grossness of our identification with the senses makes it extremely difficult to pick up intangible, extremely subtle idea, but it can be real also. The extremely subtle and intangible is also real. And that is what Srishti Prakarnam helps to dissolve away And finally, of course, with constant repetition and emphasis on oneself in Mananam, Brahman, the cause of it, is only to say that the whole of this Jagat, including my individuality, is just a mere appearance based on certain factors, and that a little few factors he just adds here more clearly what he said in the previous verse as karma and karma phala. In this verse he says this Brahman who has brought about this creation is jnanamayam through his jnanamayam tapaha. And jnanamayam tapaha here, Shankara uses it in a beautiful way. He says it is anayasa lakshanam. For us, tapas always means some sort of an effort, some sort of a taklif, some sort of a difficulty, some sort of a, the actual definition most often of tapas, austerity, is given as sharira pidanam, where you cause yourself some sort of a pida, some sort of a disturbance, some sort of an injury or difficulty to yourself where you're undergoing a hardship. So that being tapas, for us, tapas is indicative of a lot of effort. So Shankara says here by using the word tapaha and jnanamayam, for Brahman it is anayasa, means it is effortless and just knowledge. It is only born from knowledge. It is only resting in knowledge. It is sheer expression of knowledge. It is almost like saying, it is, again, the example is going to be very limited, but to understand the whole thing, at least the first part of creation, the best example I can think of is, supposing I'm just sitting, doing nothing, and a thought arises. I want to paint, supposing. Just a thought arises, I want to sketch, I want to paint. Now, when I say I want to paint, that vikar, I'm sitting doing nothing. That thought of paint is where painting, it's avyaktam. It is there in me as knowledge, but it is not manifested. But suddenly it manifests, means now there is this leisure or there's something conducive, or I just want to paint. Now, when I decide to paint, means the thought arises of just that thought. That is the beginning of creation in Brahman. It's almost like saying tapas, jnanamayam tapas. Now, in that moment, he said he swells up. What is the meaning? Through tapas, he swells up. Tapasa chiyate. That swelling up means now in my mind here, the idea is swelling up. It's gaining strength. It's gaining attention. It's come to my attention now that I want to now paint. So that I was sitting quiet, doing nothing, and then the minute the thought of painting came, it is as if there is an expansion happened. There is a swelling. There is a vikar that has happened. And even at that point, there is no specific thing in my mind that I want to paint. It's just a notion. It's just an idea. I can drop it there or I need not drop it there. I will go on if I say, okay, let me paint, and there's a force from behind, which means I must have had some past samskar for it for me to have that idea also there. That means my own past karma had brought me this desire, brought me that idea, and that desire is not I'm not dependent on that desire at that point. It is independently held there. And that thought there of painting. And then I start to say, what do I want to paint? The minute I start saying this, all this is happening in my mind. This is the Sukshma Shariram now manifesting. So I will paint a landscape. And for a landscape, what sort of a landscape I want to choose? Do I want to choose a desert landscape? Do I want to choose a green landscape? Do I want to show a sunrise, a sunset? What do I want to do? Which material do I want to use? A canvas? Do I want to use oil? Do I want to use acrylic? Do I want to use water? What is now the specification? That means before the specification happens, I have a general knowledge. I have a knowledge of what all kinds of material I can use to create a painting. And that painting is going to be representative. It's going to be representative of what? Of something in the past, either I've seen or blah, blah, blah. Something it is going to be a representative of. And the minute I decide that I am clear what kind of a painting I want to make, then I go about gathering the material. Of course, in this case, the example stops here. Now I have to go out and get the material, but for Brahman, the material is all within. That means that creation that has come about, the painting that has come about, and what all is kept where is all as if in a potential state even before the creation has started. It is avyaktam. That's the meaning of avyaktam. And it almost implies, that is why this question has always been there, that how is it that the Puranas kind of as if so accurately have pointed the yugas and what will happen in each yuga, and even the chronology of the deterioration, say Kali Yuga, how the creation will go on becoming grosser and grosser and grosser and grosser. It has always been a wonderment because it is so contrary to what we believe. When we think science is evolving, we think we are moving into more and more evolution. But from a Puranic drishti, from the Vedic viewpoint, we are grossifying. The creation is gross. The grosser the creation becomes, more limited it gets. And more limited it gets means now there is a greater bondage. So even though we may have physical comforts and everything, there is more bondage felt inside. So he says here that Brahman, summarizing the creation, he says this tapas that Brahman does, Shankara says, is na ayasaha, has no effort. Brahman has no effort in creation. Just as when I am at the level of thought and creating a painting, I need never bring it to the physical world. If Ishvara is my upadhi, if Maya is my upadhi, and at that level I'm creating something, imagine this. Here as a jiva, as a deepti, I'm creating. I am in a realm of limitation. I will need my material. But if as Ishvara with Maya upadhi, if you are in the creation, the mere thought of painting is painting, created. There is no effort there. That, he says, tasmat etat brahma. In this manner, jnanamaya tapaha, with that jnanam, which itself is called tapas. So jnana tapas it is called, but in tapas it is important to remember na ayasa lakshanam. It is not conveying effort. Brahman has no effort. It is simply just a creation. It is just there. And then what happens? He says, Nama Rupa Annam Cha Jayate. And once this has formed, there is Nam and Roop, name and form, corresponding form. So there is the form, objects, corresponding name. So if you see it from the gross world, you will say objects came first and then name. If you see it from the subtle point, name has a corresponding object. Word has a corresponding object. Akasha comes first. Sound comes first. So sound and its corresponding object, Nama. And then further grossification, Rupa. By the time the fire element has come, there is Rupa. Rupa means form, and form here ideally is color and form, because you can see color also. So now the whole Jagat has come about with Nama, Rupa and Annam. Now here Annam means food, of sustenance. Sustenance for these pranis who are going to be here till Brahma Vidya is complete, till you have owned up who you are, till you know your own real nature. There is sustenance of life according to your own prarabdham. That sustenance of life is sustained by Annam. So there is food for all living beings, means all the gross elements have come and there is food. And in which manner is food? Shankara says is Vrihi Yava Adi. Vrihi means paddy, and Yava Adi means barley, etc. Basically, it seems Yava means any grain which is spindle shaped. Yava word literally means spindle shaped. And that spindle shaped can be barley, can be wheat, but it means that all these grains have come about. So when it came to Rupam, Shankara said Shuklam, Neelam, Ityadi, white, blue, all these colors have come about. And when it comes to Annam, he says Vrihi Yava Adi Lakshanam, Jayate. All this is now emerged. So the whole creation has set forth now with living beings manifested with according to, so all species, all life forms, all food forms, all everything is now set in motion, and that is creation. And it is one of the finest throughout these Upanishads. You find these Srishti Prakriyas are something that helps one to dissolve away, as I said, Shithili Karanam, one's own emphasis of oneself being real identity. I am born and I die. And who's the adhishtan of this I am born and I die? From where has this come? Are you going to die once and for all? Is there going to be a recycle, reborn? And how many times will I be reborn? Always in a human form will I be reborn? How many life species are there? Is every creation the same creation as this creation? The same thing happens. In every creation, you have a different Brahmaji ruling, etc. So you have this only Vedas can give us this kind of a magnitude of vision of creation. And in that creation, any jiva who wishes to liberate from this cyclical re-emergence now needs jnana tapas. And that jnana tapas is in the form of Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. And that Shravana Manana Nididhyasana is applicable based on one's interest. So with this, the first section of Mundaka Upanishad is over. If you quickly run over, first verse, Brahma Devanam Prathama Sambhabhuva Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gupta Sab Brahma Vidyam Sarva Vidya Pratishtham Atharvaya Jeshta Putraya Praha. Means firstborn Brahmaji, who is also the creator, when he creates this bhuvana, this whole earth, gives this Brahma Vidya, which is the Adhishtan. And see, the question is going to be asked from this point also. Shaunaka has asked that question. Here itself he says Brahma Vidya is the Pratishtham, Sarva Vidya Pratishtham of all the knowledges. Means all knowledges are limited. Brahma Vidya is the only knowledge which gives you the limitless. And that Sarva Vidya Pratishtham, Atharvaya, he gives it. Jeshta Putraya Praha Atharvaneyam Pravadeta Brahma Atharvatam Purovacha Angire Brahma Vidya. He gives it to Angiras, and then Bharadvajaya Satyavahaya Praha Bharadvajo Angirase Paravaram. So the whole lineage has set here, and Mundaka starts with that question, Shaunako Havai Mahashalaha. Shaunaka was a great Grahastha, and now see how karma has got introduced here. According to karma, Shaunaka has been living according to his Varna Ashrama karma. Shaunaka, he's a Mahashalaha. He's been doing his Agnihotra karmas, etc., Grahastha karmas he has been abiding in. Vaidika Grahastha karmas he has chosen to abide in. And he has now matured his thinking because of the abidance in karma. The benefit has been adrishtam, and that adrishtam has produced chitta shuddhi enough without working at it individually in terms of qualities and removing raga, dvesha, etc. Just mere abidance of the karma portion of Vedas has given the maturity of the antakaranam, that he starts to understand. He has heard it off and on that there is something called knowledge which liberates. So he says, goes to Kasminnu bhagavo vignate sarvamidam vignatam bhavati. He asks Angiras, the teacher of this Upanishad, what is that one thing with which I will know all? So, if I know all pots, clay pots, each one of them is only clay, or if I put it in this way, that if I know clay, then I know all clay. So if I know what is a life force here, what is the truth of the being here, then I know the truth of all beings. What is that what makes me, as Kena Upanishad says, what is that which makes me see and hear and speak and talk and feel? What is it that makes me? If I know that, then I know what makes everyone see and everyone feel and everyone think and etc. So to him, Angiras had said, Dve vidye veditavye. There are these two knowledges that have to be known, that should be known. Yet Brahma Vido Vadanti, as the Brahmavids have said, Para and Apara Vidya. And in that, he said, Apara Vidya is Rik, all the four Vedas and all the Vedangas is Apara Vidya because they help for performance of karma, but they do not directly bring about Brahma Vidya. They help in the performance of karma for Chitta Shuddhi, but the karta there is knowledge of karta is not held in the processes of karma. So the knowledge of karta is to be gained separately, independently of all the karmas that one does. So that knowledge of the karta now who is involved in karma is parayaya, is para, by which knowledge aksharam adhikamyate. And that word aksharam has become the base of the rest of the verses in this section. What is that aksharam? He said, then that knowledge is akshara, which does not have any kshara, any destruction, any dissolution, any change. It does not decay. It does not undergo modification. That Aksharam Brahman is Adrishyam, Agrahyam, Agotram, Avarnam. Achakshush Tat Apani Padam. It is without sense organs, without. So now the entire, see, what is without sense organs? What is without sense organs of action, perception, without objects of sense organs? Now see how this definition has started with all, and then the Srishti Prakaranam came. And now the resolution of the Srishti Prakaranam, when you go back to that verse, you realize all the creation is nothing but Pani, Padam, Grahyam, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, all the Srishti is on one side. Brahman is on the other side. Brahman is the base of it all. Brahman is the Adhishtan of it all. And he is none of this. And so, how does Brahman become the cause of the creation without undergoing a change at all? Just as a spider, and then just as the plant, and just as the nails and the hair grow, so does the entire creation come about. And that, he says, is the reason the creation comes about is not Brahman's desire to make a creation and then put living beings in it and then make them suffer and bring plurality and make them struggle for their happiness and make them struggle for their food and water and everything and make a difficult life for them as if he's sitting there in enjoyment. And Brahman is just a nimitta karanam, abhinna nimitta karanam. He has nothing, no say in it. What becomes the cause of creation is all these jiva rashi's previous karma phala. Whatever that has been done, that becomes the cause. So the cyclical causation, that niyam, is what is the gyan that Brahman has held. And that niyam, based on that alone, is this creation that sets forth. And once there is this time for the creation to emerge, tapasa chiyate brahma, that readiness, that preparedness, that actualization of creation's manifestation now, where now all those jiva rashis till the kalpa has to end are going to be now given an opportunity to experience their karma phal, and in that the sustenance of life through food, etc., is there. So, with this, the first section is over. Even though only one person has really said this, that you would prefer an assignment on it, I think it is. I'll just send it. If anybody wants to do it, can do it. Next week, we will not take a class. Next Tuesday, I will not have a class, just so that in case someone wants to do it or revise it over, you can go over. And once you move forward, we generally don't get time to go back. So it is a good idea to keep revising, going back, and you may listen, you may, whatever notes you have made, or whichever way. Or if you don't want to do it, it doesn't matter at all. Everyone has their own way of learning and reflection. Everybody doesn't have to write down and things like that. Everybody is not made like that, not designed like that. But if someone is, I personally think that is very useful. I have benefited from it. So I'm saying again, just because I have benefited doesn't mean everybody has to. Everybody has their own method of learning. Stick to your method of learning. Nobody has to have another person's method of learning. But if someone else also wants to try it, you may please do that. So it helps to consolidate the thought, the knowledge. So many ideas come. When we revisit those ideas, they get stronger. And now, by Ishwara's Anugraha, definitely this is the knowledge. There is nothing more than this is that knowledge. The more we will go over it again and again, the more it starts to take anchor. There'll be nothing new knowledge that needs to be acquired. This is the knowledge which is Sarva Vidya Pratishtham. So this knowledge alone is that which needs to be held. With our interests in life and everything, we kind of course, know it, but holding it takes its time. So I will try, or else the best thing is, let's see how it goes. I'll send you mails. And if anybody else wants to attempt, you can send me a mail or put a comment here whenever, if there's someone who's not subscribed and is still listening and he wants to attempt the assignment, you can comment here or you can send me a mail at vedanta.vichar, as the channel name goes, at gmail.com, and I can send you a link for it also. So with this, we will end the class today. And if you have any questions, you can always email also or comment here. I'll take them up before we start the second section. Not next Tuesday, the following Tuesday. So I'll end the class here. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit dukha bhag bhave. Thank you, everyone. Yes, Malini, I will send you the email. That will be very nice, also, I think. And as I also said before, um, only if there is something wrong, then I'll read all of them for sure. Always read them. But I may not reply all of them because everybody has their own way of also replying. So only if there is some information which is wrong that you have written will I reply back. Otherwise, I know for sure, we all know this is how we've all learned. The first time we do, and the eighth time when we do the same thing, we will see where our answers or our attempts were right or wrong. So it's a self growth. So, with that, I will send to everyone. But as I said, only if you want to, would you do it? And yes, everyone, please attempt to. This is, I know, yes, Vani, absolutely wonderful. I think some of you have, those who have attempted very sincerely, it's been amazing to read your assignments. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I just feel very humbled and I feel extremely, I don't know the right words. A time like this, where the whole world is going topsy turvy, has gone topsy turvy, worlds have, the whole orientation of world has changed. To know that some of you have, I have got that opportunity also, and some of you have done it so well, is so heartening. I just get too overwhelmed, I think. It's just beautiful to know that at a time like this, where we could have been completely whatever, knowledge has held us. And that's a very reassuring thing. And your answers are absolutely very, very reassuring. So thank you so much. Really, I thank you so much for it because it just is beautiful. And also inspires me a little bit to take a class. So I'll send the assignments maybe today or tomorrow. And I definitely want to, I'm reformatting the way I have taken classes because in the past we were taking as was the module set. But when I now take classes, definitely there's going to be breaks in between for whoever it is worth, even if it is one person who wants that time to revise. I think it's worth it. Even if some of you get lost in the process because of the gap, it'll be worth the one person who would use the time for revision, because I know how going forward makes us, without consolidating the previous knowledge. I had hoped that this was always going to be there. Yeah, I know, I also think so. So, yes, Malini, it's really helped. So, helped all that. There is some beautiful anugraha, as always, that has kept us. So, thank you, everyone. Stay fine, stay healthy, and still have precautions because we all know there is going to be another round. We do not know about time. In a week, 2 weeks' time, it may flare a little bit up. So, it'll be very soon time to pull up the guards, take precautions. Hopefully, it'll all end soon at some point. But till then, just take care. Don't give up your guards. And God bless. So we'll meet next to next Tuesday and I'll send the assignments. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Hari Om. Namaste.